Good afternoon, everybody. This is Nick from Beer and Broadband. We're super excited to have some great panelists today. We're live from Mountain Connect here in Denver, Colorado, talking about open access, broadband, technology platforms, a lot of really fun stuff. So before we do, like we always do on Beer and Broadband, let's introduce our panel. To my right, the gentleman that has been on here before, Beni.
Thank you, Nick. Thanks for the great introduction. It's going to be hard to live that one up.
Yeah.
I am Beni Blell, and I've been having fun with fiber for 30 plus years.
That should totally be a game.
Fun with fiber.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm with Hexatronic, and we are proud partners with Bonfire and the Southern Ute Tribe, which we'll be talking about here shortly enough. But we are a complete end-to-end system provider for all things passive optical network. So we've been in the industry going back to when we were Ericsson since the 90s, and in the US for many years now. But I'm happy to talk and elaborate a little bit more on all the things air-blown fiber, but I'll pass it on to the lovely lady next to me, and we'll come back to air-blown fiber.
Top air-blown fiber. Come on.
I can't. I've been having fun with fiber I've only been having fun with fiber for about 9 years so far. So can't compete on that level. But a lot of fun.
Fun with fiber.
Fun with fiber.
Hashtag fun with fiber.
Hashtag. It's our new one. Ashley Poling, COS Systems. We are a operations software, billing and operations software, but our core is over 15 years based in open access, so enabling automated open access networks. Also a proud partner of Bonfire and Bonfire Fiber, and helping them bring open access to more communities across the U.S.
And then I'm Justin Roller.
Do you have fun with fiber too?
Not as much fun as no. I've only been having fun with fiber for a few years now. I guess how many years?
You need a lot more brand in your diet then, I guess.
Way more. But president of Bonfire Fiber, on our Bonfire Fiber division, focuses on operating open access networks. Whether that be third-party owned or networks that we'll develop. Beni pointed out, we just made the announcement that Bonfire's been chosen by the Southern Ute Tribe to run their network in Southern Colorado.
Congratulations. Cheers.
Yeah.
Let's cheers to that.
Cheers.
Excellent. Well done, everybody. Well done. Wait.
Yeah, one more. There we go. So
Promise to die for fiber.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, we're really happy to get that project kicked off. We launched the COS platform yesterday with the announcement coming out. We got our first surveys being filled out. Speed tests are coming in, and so it's really cool. It's exciting that we're starting to see how much demand there is, and really solving the problem of bridging the digital divide that everybody likes to talk about.
He's only had one beer. He hasn't even started.
Yeah, exactly. I had a sip. That got me. I'm a lightweight. What can I say? So I think we're really excited to get started on that, and we've been blowing fiber now for a while on the backbone system, and hopefully we'll be starting. We need one more environmental permit, and we'll be doing fiber to the home in the next few weeks.
So let's back up a little bit. Obviously, we do want to talk about the announcement that came out about the Southern Ute Tribe, but let's zoom out a little bit just to talk about the platform. So, you mentioned open access, we mentioned what's going to be happening there, but what's behind the curtain, right? So how do we actually make some of this happen? Because a lot of conversations I've had today at Mountain Connect, everybody's talking about the technology and this, and we're all obviously advocates for broadband, but most people have no concept of how it actually happens. So since we'll go back to the blown fiber, and then the platforms that are there to make this stuff real for the communities. So what the heck is blown fiber?
Well, before we get into what the heck is blown fiber, I would say the way it happens is through true partnerships and coordination. I think we all have to truly understand what the needs.
You didn't start with funding.
No, that's part of the equation, funding.
Okay.
But funding is what enables the success of deployment to actually happen, right? So we start with the needs of the community. How do we end up with this demand for fiber to start with, right? So
TikTok?
TikTok is, well, how about COVID? How about the realities of
YouTube, yeah.
of a pandemic that forced our children to go to parking lots of Walmarts and McDonald's to get their homework done, right? So when you look at, and that's in not that rural communities, right? So if
The
you look
ability
at,
to see your grandmother and grandfather and elderly people, I mean, when you couldn't access them because you couldn't be near them.
there are many communities that got left behind. And the tribal aspect is one of those that was, I think, probably on the more severe side of left behind. So it was an honor, a pleasure, a privilege to become involved with Bonfire and the Southern Ute Tribe to find a technological solution that met the current and future needs of the tribe. If we look at the multi-generational way that the tribe looks at building anything, any infrastructure, the air-blown fiber system actually enables that in a much more practical and efficient way than any other technology that's available out there. Because what you're doing is you're building pathways. And pathways are available for today and for significant time into the future. So you're populating those pathways as the demand of the community grows. So in the specific situation of the backbone that's being built that you were referring to, there are 7 tubes in that one single duct, and today we're blowing a 144 fiber count cable through just one of those. And if it's interesting, we talk about 7 generations. There are 6 more tubes to go. So the math worked out perfectly in one regard, but that's just the backbone, right? So if you in a network, you have to look at things like the cost to deploy, both in materials and labor. You have to look at the future-proofing of the network, the scalability and flexibility. You have to look at even the sustainable and environmental impact of that network, right? So we know that there's significant regulatory as well as tribal considerations that come into account in terms of disturbing the ground and other aspects, protecting wildlife and the environment in general. So the solution of air-blown fiber by putting much smaller plastic tubes, if you think about the traditional way of building networks, putting an 1.25 inch duct or multiple 2-inch ducts, you're not putting very small ducts. You're taking up less of a footprint, you're using less
Sustainability.
plastic, and you're using 4 to 16 times fewer trucks to deliver those plastic pipes to the construction site. Plus, you're using half the number of crews to blow the fiber versus pull the fiber through a traditional duct.
So let me ask you part of obviously this announcement too is the Southern Ute is obviously very focused on community, on legacy. So you mentioned the point of the technology that's there allows looking beyond today, looking beyond 5 years, looking beyond 10 years probably, right? I guess when you think about that and even the network design, like how does this technology impact that view of legacy and of a longer term view versus, a lot of times, you can look at communities, you can look at networks that are like, hey, I'm going to make sure it gets done. It'll last a few years.
Well, we don't know what the future is bringing, to be real. I mean, there were multiple panels out there today talking about the ultimate future-proofing of networks. And
there's robots running around.
make every dollar count, too, right? So I heard that one this morning as well. So the funding part of this, we're obligated to spend those monies wisely. And part of spending it wisely is making sure that we're building a network that can handle the needs of today and 20 years from now.
Well, and it's even faster than that. Like we've already seen now that this backbone is in and we've got that 7-way product in the ground, so we have extra ducts. Phone calls have already come in from cell phone companies saying, "Hey, do you have?" They're looking for do you have spare fiber? And you're like, well, we actually have a spare duct, and they're like, oh, wow, a spare duct. That's music to their ears because they'd rather have their own fiber. But now we're improving communications, not just fiber to the home, but we're also improving the cell phone infrastructure, in these areas by just planning ahead a little bit for a future demand. But sometimes the future is literally tomorrow as fast as technology moves. So
what does that mean? So what does that mean to now having extra ducts? Because the point of the cell phone provider being surprised, what does having all these extra ducts actually mean in a practical sense?
I think the cell phone example and like small cells, like the best example is the carriers would like to use their own fiber. They don't really want to use somebody else's fiber. They will, but they don't want to. If you have a spare duct, they don't have to dig the street up again to get in there. Or they don't say, well, this area is so rural, I'm not really interested in doing a cell phone deployment here because it's rural and it's going to be expensive and there's only so many thousand customers, so I'm not, they're like, forget it, I'm going to go somewhere else. You don't get 5G or you don't get better LTE or whatever in that community when you make it easy and you remove the barriers. And I think like your partner in comment, right? So you're removing barriers for people to improve off of by saying, hey, it costs a little bit more to put a 7-way in than maybe a 4-way, but like by just planning for a little bit of extra capacity and thinking ahead just a little bit, we have so much more flexibility with the network. And now if another, say you could even have 2 cell phone companies, we're going to use one of the ducts to do the fiber to the home network, but then you still have all this extra capacity and flexibility that you're handing down for the next person that inherits this thing. And instead of saying, oh, I've got this network and it's great at doing exactly what it does, but I can't expand off of it, extend it, or meet whatever the new demand is for some kind of edge computing for your driverless car or what, I don't know, whatever that's
Whatever Elon
happening.
comes up with
Yeah,
next,
like,
right? Like
yeah,
it's
exactly,
going to be
exactly. Whatever the next X or
X,
whatever
X,
it is,
yeah.
then we're ready, and I think that's
Reg is going to take over. So.
it's really cool that part of the system that we've deployed with Hex, I think, is really cool. It really, and we're already seeing it being valuable from day one, and we know it'll be valuable in the future.
So let's look at it from the platform side, right? So how does COS fit into that? How does it fit into this model that's being built? And obviously, again, specifically the announcement of the Southern New Tribe, but like in general too.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a few ways. Obviously, our platform is, enabling open access, right? It's a operation system that basically allows Bonfire to deliver, access to multiple service providers and multiple services. So when you talk about what the difference is, and there's giant conversations around what is open access and the true definition, but one way to look at it, especially kind of piggybacking off of what Beni said, is that it's really an infrastructure approach. So what you're doing is you're foundationally setting an infrastructure, and we don't know what's going to be used for. We all obviously know we need to address the digital divide. We need to address, getting fiber as deep as possible into people's homes. And right now that's for ISPs and bringing on competitive ISPs. But in the future, the platform also, we start with a marketplace. And you can go online and you can pick multiple ISPs, but down the road, what other services are you going to be able to pick? And so you've got tribes who have been historically pigeonholed with either no choices or one monopoly. And now you guys have set a foundation, both infrastructure-wise for, generations of additional infrastructure deployment, but the platforms and the open network model also allows the growth on the services side, so that you're not just stuck with one ISP that owns a network and doesn't scale to meet the future of technology. Yeah, telehealth and everything that is hard to come by in a rural tribal community.
No, and I think that's a big part of it is now we can do a deployment and you can have what we always say is big city internet in one of the most rural parts of America. And so I think I think it's just a big deal because being smaller rural communities and then tribal communities especially face this gap of not having connectivity. And if you don't have the connectivity, you can't work from home, you can't do school from home, you can't do these other things, and you don't have the same opportunity that somebody else does who's sitting on fiber, in a major metro. And so you get left behind. And I think that's that idea of not getting left behind. And I think some of the stuff like we're doing with the COS platform is it makes it easier to bring people on. So we lower the barrier of entry, so we can let like smaller regional players come on, and they can have a chance to participate and grow their business without getting kind of like left out of the game. Telecom usually just starts to revolve around some very large players, and this kind of it sort of opens it up and maybe lets some other people have a chance to participate and compete. If they can compete locally, then great. Like people like the buy local idea, and open access lets you do that. And I think there's some real value there. And one of the other cool things that we're doing now with COS is that we've got an integration into our software another software company that we use for construction management, and COS has integrated that into the system, so we actually know where we're doing construction and like what neighborhoods are coming, like ready to come online, is all integrated into that same software platform. And that's what one of the like the values that like they bring to us as a firm that's doing construction management as well, to be able to tie the two things together, so that I don't have to be like, oh, I got to go to this system to figure out where we're at on construction, and this system to figure out, you know, can I turn this customer up? And then it's like, I'm taking an order, and then when is the tech rolling out? The two systems now are tied together, which makes it just, I think, more efficient. So I think the platforms and like being able to partner and use these platforms to get, I think, more efficient, because you talked about environmental sustainability, but a bigger problem in these local, or I shouldn't say bigger, but another big problem in these smaller markets is economic sustainability. So we have to do everything we can to like automate and be smart, because there's just, when you have less customers, you don't have room for extra people. So being smart and figuring out like clever ways to run the business, I think lets us actually run a sustainable network also.
So let's dive into a little bit of obviously the announcement that came out about the Southern New Tribe. Let's be specific about that. Talk to me about how, like, what is that use case? Like, what is that specific use case, and how is it working? I guess, or, you know, from what you're able to share, right, of that, so that people have the context of, like, this is a true example of open access, how it's working, and why.
I mean, I mean, we kind of talked a lot about it already, but I mean, yeah, we're putting in, so it's going to be an airborne fiber system, and you know, we worked a lot with Hex because there's some challenges to making everything work right in an extremely rural environment, but figuring out a design that's sort of optimized, and I think that's like back to partnering, right? Is like being able to work with your vendor partner to come up with an optimized design that actually works and makes financial sense in this market, is a big deal. But then, you know, once you get past that, it is fiber to the home. It isn't like rural doesn't have to be that scary. It's not that much different, right? And it's like, yeah, you know, do we have to train the construction crew one time on how to blow the fiber in? And it's like, okay, so now they're trained on how to blow the fiber in, and we're moving, you know, and like getting our team trained up on like the COS platform. I mean, it's.
Can I just ask a question there? So like on that, I mean, there's some of the conversations we've had earlier today on other episodes of this is around maintenance. And so like in this model with the blown fiber, like what changes, or is there any difference in the maintenance piece of this? Because a lot of the comments we've gotten from ISPs that have been on, we've talked to earlier, like, hey, look, we've got all this money coming in, but like at the end of the day, after, like what happens after? Like, so where does that tie into this?
Yeah, it's a great question, and one of the beautiful things about air-blown fiber is that it's basically plumbing with fiber. And if you've got a break, you don't have water spilling everywhere, but you do have light spilling everywhere, right? For lack of a better description there.
The light, look at
the light, it's escaping.
Yeah.
But again, it's a broken small pipe that's 7 millimeters in diameter, and you repair it like you would repair a broken hose, and you blow the old 2-fiber unit out and you blow a fresh one in. No fusion splicing, and your subscriber's up and running in a very short period of time. So from
Which is a very different maintenance model than
correct.
Previous deployments.
Correct. So you have to also think about where is this break happening, right? So if you have a break between the property line or the street and the side of the residence with a traditional drop cable, you have to dig up the entire drop cable and replace that whole piece, right? In the case of the air-blown fiber, you repair only the broken piece of tube and you blow a fresh piece of fiber. So it shortens the time to repair, it shortens the disruption. You know, if you have nice landscaping, you don't want to have your whole yard dug up.
Nobody wants that.
All that fun stuff.
Yeah.
But ultimately, maintenance is one part of the benefit of air-blown fiber. The benefits are across the entire network. Okay. So what we're in the final phases of now is it's called the backbone or the feeder part of the network, which is that 144 channel cable through a 7-way microduct. The next phase is actually building out the distribution and drop part of the network, which is all through a set of smaller little microtubes. And now your cost is also significantly lower than in a traditional network, but your speed to deploy is also significantly faster. The speed to actually get customers lit up is faster, and then the maintenance is the last dimension to that. So if you look at this holistically, as in the entire network, and the complexity for air-blown fiber is significantly lower than in a traditional type of network where you have to physically build out the entire distribution part of the network day one.
Right.
So you have to put all this fiber in the going down the street.
Right.
Right? So you come back to maintenance. If something gets dug up, you have to repair 100% of the broken fibers in the distribution part of the network. Right?
Which is expensive.
It's expensive.
And it pisses off the community.
It does. So again, simplifying the network, lowering the cost, increasing the flexibility and scalability, all of that is inherently built into these air-blown fiber systems that have been selected as the architecture of choice.
But it's also, the same lines, it's also cooked into the COS system, right? So it's auto provisioning, the ticketing system that we can use, and then costs being integrated with our construction management, like that we use for managing the drops. Those integrations it just means less people, and it means quicker reaction to problems and to customers, and I think that's, again, like by picking, we looked at it as like by bringing the right kind of partners to the table that to get past some of the hurdles of like, well, if you're not going to have 40,000 customers, how do you make this all work, right? Like, is there enough revenue? And so when in smaller, like rural kind of settings, and especially tribal settings, it's like you're not going to have a massive amount of revenue because there just aren't as many people out there. But if you can be smart in how you're operating, you keep your maintenance costs down, both from a in the field like OSP kind of sense, and also in your back office ISP sense. And I think that's like some of the systems we're kind of talking about here today, like do those things for us.
So maybe talk about the, there's with costs, right? You have the front end and the back end, right? I mean, Justin just mentioned the integration of the back end, which, the end resident, they don't care about. But what is important?
But they should care.
Obviously.
They obviously should care, yeah. But I mean, the front end is important too, right? So like the to your point about saving time in that interface, like how does that all work? Like,
Yeah, so I mean, the COS product is really core, right? Automation is one of the core things that we discuss, and I think we're seeing a movement towards that in all of these SaaS products that are on the market, where everyone's starting to realize that you cannot deploy, $100 billion plus of fiber infrastructure and still continue to do things the way that you've done them for 30 years. We have to get smarter. So making smart integrations and
wait a minute, there's a Captain Obvious hat somewhere around here.
I don't think it is Captain Obvious, unfortunately, but I
There's nothing obvious in this industry.
No.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It
But
should be, but
it should be, and I think that's one of the reasons that we've really enjoyed, partnering with the Bonfire team, is because they seem to really get it, right? They're not like, this is the way
She
it's
says
always.
you seem to get
Yeah,
it. Not that
Well, yeah, let's see.
Definitely do. You
Let's
do.
see. Give us time.
Give it time. Give it time.
You get it. It's, sorry. No, it's that, it's not, hey, this is how we've always done it. Like, we're looking for the best, the best products, the best model, and we're willing to think, a little bit outside of the box in order to get it done because of looking for that efficiency. So that's the core of the COS product, right? But then what we do that's a little different on the front end is that we really believe in, the future of, networks, and on the automation side for customers is all customer driven. So think of it as the Amazon of internet, or Amazon of internet services, right? So you're going to a marketplace where you're able to choose, your services or your service providers. You're able to, you create an account, you're able to submit a ticket, which of course then, goes to the operator, or ISP. You are able to, interact without picking up a phone. And we talked to so many folks on the traditional ISP side that, the product also, works for, that are like, well, we have to think about these, picking up the phone and calling the customers. And we're like, we don't want you to think about that anymore. Yeah. If you're still thinking like that, then you're not probably going to purchase this product because you don't understand that our goal is to not do that, or to do that so little
That's a
that
mind shift, though.
yeah,
That's
it's a core mind shift. We want you to do that so little that when you do it, it's so, you know, it's so personal, and it's for that person that needs that, not for everybody.
So I guess, and this is for all of you guys, like, how do you, you know, we've talked to a couple different ISPs today, and we've in the past, like, how do you convince people that have, I mean, telecom, broadband, it's a lot of old school stuff, right? Like, and there's a lot of legacy thinking, and I'll say that's the nice way to say it, but like, how do you convince these different ways of doing business, from open access to different technologies to different ways to deploy fiber? What do you say to like the people that, like, how do you get them over the edge? Like, hey, this is hey, we're in 2023.
Yeah, that's actually been the biggest challenge, believe it or not. Like I said, I've been having fun with fiber for 30 years.
I mean,
I've been doing things the old-fashioned way until I got fully exposed to the benefits of air-blown fiber. So all I can say is we've been able
Now
to.
you're funner with fiber.
Much funner with fiber. I'm actually really having fun. When you look at the math, it really works out. That's the beautiful part about this solution.
Throwing out numbers.
No, you got to start with the numbers, right? That's the first thing they look at. Any ISP or network operator is going to say, well, this is all fine and dandy, but what's the ultimate cost? So we can demonstrate anywhere from 20 to 30% lower CapEx day one. And any of that, and a big chunk of that CapEx is deferred to when you actually have a paying subscriber, because you're only blowing a fiber to a paying subscriber. Whereas in a traditional network, you have to put, as I said earlier, the entire distribution network has to be built out. The other benefits of the air-blown fiber, you talk about efficiency, right? So one of the things Hexatronic specifically brings to the table than others is full vertical integration. So if you were to build a traditional network, you'd have to get 1.5 inch duct from one manufacturer, cable from another manufacturer, connectivity from a third manufacturer, optical splitter equipment from a fourth, handholds from a fifth, and you end up having to coordinate between 5-6 different vendors to have your project line up in terms of material availability, and then you also have to look at compatibility between the components, et cetera, et cetera. So
That's a lot.
it's a lot. So not only
it's
so
a
now
lot.
we talk
I've had a
about
few beers, but that's still a lot.
so now we talk about, okay, great. So we can save you 20 to 30%, but we also bring the entire system, so you're dealing with one entity, and we have engineering services. One partner, exactly. Training, site support technology. I mean, our people were in the field with your people, making sure everything went in the ground right, the cable was being blown correctly, everything lights up, everybody goes home happy, right? So the partnership, you have to come back to the partnership here. Yes, old habits die hard. But I think we also have to really give technologies a chance to prove themselves. Air-blown fiber, first of all, is not a new technology.
It's not.
People have been blowing fiber since the early 90s, right? This technology is throughout Europe, even here in the US, there are several manufacturers promoting blown fiber type, blown cable type technologies. It's not new. It's the old habits that die hard. So we come back to making sure that every dollar counts, right? So we owe it to ourselves as taxpayers to make sure that we're not throwing 20% of this money that our money.
I like it. He's throwing the patriotic part. You know,
Hey,
be
it's our
patriotic.
money. It's our money. It's
look
this
at
side of the
that.
fence.
Buy American, go American.
come on,
Come on now.
come on.
Patriotism. There we go.
Not just that. Just let's spend our money wisely. Let the dollar go further.
And I think that's another thing just about all of these platforms that we're kind of putting together and we're talking about here is like, yeah, like setting up a platform with COS so then you can sit there and say, oh, maybe when the right telehealth product comes out, somebody can go to the marketplace and buy that. So you're now using the network for maybe that healthcare application or security or over-the-top video service or whatever else that you might want to sell in addition to just broadband. But it's like use the network for more than just, it's just an internet connection to the house. Like where you were trying to use the marketplace to promote that, we're trying to set it up for that so that we use more of this, right? We put a duct in that allows us to blow additional fiber. So when we put in that 7-way or whatever, and I think just those kind of things about like let's get the most utilization possible out of this money, and again it kind of goes back to like what you said. It's like, hey, if we can cut costs and increase utilization, now we're more effective. And I think it ties back to this whole idea is like that partnership, and how do we get more people convinced? I do think we have to prove it though. Like you said, we have to prove these in, and I think some of it is proving it in more and more. And like this project, is hopefully going to be a great project, so that we can get the numbers, so that we can go back to people and show people the numbers. Like, why does it work, right? But there is that piece, right? You got to have that last, like, hey, well, I got it now. But yeah,
I got it. Took me a minute.
yeah, but I had half a beer now.
Seven beers.
But I think that's the other big piece though with some of this stuff is because none of this is new. Open access isn't new, right? But it's like, but we have to have use cases in the U.S. and in the specifically like in a variety of markets, so that we can show people that it works, and show them with numbers, so that you see it.
Yeah, I think it's just a few things. I think that, obviously use cases is important, but none of this is new. I mean, COS has been around since the early 2000s. Markets are fully developed in other countries. It's not new in concept, but
Well, the U.S. we're like an petulant teenager with a Corvette. Like, I mean, we're we got a lot of money and we just don't know what to do with ourselves.
well, I don't think we've been forced to innovate. That's what I think. I think markets shift and change, and I don't think we've been forced to innovate. So when you have over $100 billion and a finally aha moment in America that this isn't just about an ISP and a business, this is about the future and the foundation of a digital economy, then you have to start innovating. And so when people realize that, it's a forced push to this. I mean, and folks like Bonfire who are at the forefront of it, right? They're going to say, well, we already saw that, we already knew that. And there was a study out of, you talk about cost cutting, there's a study out of California, and I'm going to get completely wrong the specifics of it at this point, but something along the lines of that if you build an open network, you can get fiber 30% further with government dollars. So it's sustainable, it's smart, and it reaches our goals better. But ultimately, I think innovation is generally in the U.S. a forced concept. So the markets will sway us that way.
That was good. That's a tough act to follow right there. So, yeah. No, cheers to innovation. Yeah. Well, gentlemen and lady, thank you so much for dropping by today.